My mother's nurse leaned closer to me in the hallway and whispered something that made the air in my lungs feel suddenly thin. Your father didn't die naturally. For a moment I thought I had misheard her. Hospitals have a strange way of distorting reality. Fluorescent lights, antiseptic smells, the constant hum of machines. But the look in her eyes was sharp and terrified. Then she added quietly, almost under her breath. Don't go home tonight. If your family sees you, the truth may never come out. My name is Abigail Turner, and until that moment I believed my father's death was the one honest tragedy in our complicated family. He had died 2 weeks earlier. Heart failure, they said. Natural causes. The funeral had been tasteful. Predictable. My older brother Daniel cried loudly enough that the entire chapel heard him. My mother held my hand the whole time, fragile and pale in black silk. Everything looked exactly like grief is supposed to look. But something inside me had always felt slightly off. Small details. My father's sudden collapse. The way Daniel insisted on handling all the paperwork. The way my mother barely spoke during the entire service. Now the nurse, a woman named Marjorie who had cared for my mother for years, was gripping my wrist with trembling fingers. Abigail, she whispered, her voice breaking, you weren't supposed to come here tonight. A cold weight settled in my stomach. Why? I asked. She glanced down the hallway toward my mother's room. Then she said the one sentence that changed everything. Because someone in your family knows what really happened to your father. Marjorie's words didn't sound dramatic. They sounded careful. The kind of careful you hear from someone who's been holding a secret for too long. I stared at her. What do you mean someone knows? The hallway outside my mother's hospital room felt strangely quiet. A cart rattled somewhere in the distance, and the soft scent of disinfectant hung in the air. Marjorie leaned closer. Your father didn't just collapse, she said. The night before he died, he came to see your mother. That stopped me cold. My father and mother had been living separately for months. Their marriage had become polite, distant. The kind where holidays were carefully scheduled and conversations stayed on the surface. He came here. I asked. Marjorie nodded. I was on the late shift. Your mother wasn't doing well that night, so I stayed nearby. My heart began to beat faster. What happened? Marjorie hesitated. I heard them arguing. That didn't surprise me. But what she said next did. Your father kept asking the same question, she continued quietly. Over and over. What question? He swallowed. He kept saying, how long have you known Eleanor? Eleanor. My mother. A chill ran down my spine. Known what? I asked. Marjorie shook her head slowly. That's the problem, she said. I don't know. Then she looked straight into my eyes, her voice barely louder than a breath. But someone else in your family definitely does. My first instinct was denial. Families argue. People say strange things in emotional moments. None of that meant my father had been killed. But Marjorie wasn't finished. There's more, she said quietly. I crossed my arms, suddenly aware of how cold the hospital hallway felt. Then tell me. Marjorie glanced again toward my mother's room, as if the walls themselves might be listening. The argument stopped suddenly, she said. Your father left around midnight. I remember because I helped him find the elevator. What was he like? I asked. Shaken. That word settled heavily in my chest. He wasn't angry anymore, she continued. He looked frightened. My father wasn't a man who frightened easily. Daniel and I used to joke that nothing in the world could rattle him. Not business deals, not family fights, not even the stubborn heart condition he'd lived with for years. What did he say? I asked. Marjorie hesitated again. Right before the elevator doors closed, he asked me something strange. My stomach tightened. What? He asked if anyone else had been visiting your mother recently. That's not strange, I said automatically. But Marjorie shook her head. The way he asked was. I frowned. What do you mean? Her voice dropped to a whisper. He didn't ask about friends. He asked specifically if Daniel had been coming here. My older brother's name landed like a stone in the silence between us. Then Marjorie added one last detail. The next morning, she said slowly, your father was dead. The word Daniel echoed in my head long after Marjorie stopped speaking. My brother had always been the responsible one. The calm one. The one people trusted without question. After our father died, Daniel handled everything. The lawyer, the bank accounts, even the quiet decision to sell our father's company shares. At the time I had been grateful. Now that gratitude felt like something heavier. When was the last time Daniel visited Mom? I asked. Marjorie didn't answer immediately. Instead she looked down the hallway again, her face tight with worry. 3 days before your father died, she said finally. My pulse quickened. Was he arguing with her too? No, Marjorie replied softly. That's what made it strange. How? He stayed inside her room for almost 2 hours. But the whole time, it was quiet. Quiet. My father's visit ended with raised voices. Daniel's visit ended with silence. What were they doing? I asked. Marjorie shook her head. I don't know. But when Daniel left, your mother looked different. Different how? Her answer came slowly. Relieved. A chill ran down my arms. Relieved. The word didn't belong anywhere near my father's death. I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. Marjorie, why are you telling me all this tonight? She looked straight into my eyes. Because something else happened this evening. What? Her fingers tightened around my wrist again. Your brother came back. Daniel came here tonight? I asked. Marjorie nodded once, quickly. About 30 minutes before you arrived. My pulse began to pound in my ears. That's not unusual, I said, though even to me the words sounded weak. He visits Mom all the time. Marjorie shook her head. No. Not like this. The hallway lights flickered faintly above us, and the quiet suddenly felt too heavy. He didn't check in at the front desk, she continued. I only noticed him because I was bringing medication to another room. What was he doing? I asked. He went straight into your mother's room. My eyes moved automatically toward the closed door at the end of the hall. And he stayed for 15 minutes. That's normal. Marjorie leaned closer. But when he left, he wasn't alone. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? He was carrying something. A bag. She shook her head slowly. No. Her voice lowered until it was barely audible. A small metal lockbox. The kind my father used to keep important papers in. A cold wave rolled through my chest. Are you sure? I whispered. Marjorie nodded. I've seen that box before. Your father used to bring it whenever he came to discuss finances with your mother. I swallowed. So why would Daniel take it? Marjorie's answer came immediately. Because whatever was inside it mattered. She glanced down the hallway again. Then she said something that made my skin prickle. And Abigail, he looked terrified someone might see him. For a moment neither of us spoke. My mind kept circling the same image. Daniel walking out of my mother's room carrying my father's lockbox. That box had always stayed in my father's study. He kept documents in it he trusted no one else to handle. Legal papers. Contracts. Sometimes handwritten notes he never wanted scanned or copied. Did he see you? I asked. Marjorie shook her head. No. But he moved quickly. Like he didn't want to be here long. I stared at the door to my mother's room. Maybe Mom gave it to him, I said, though the explanation felt thin. Marjorie's expression didn't change. Your mother was asleep, she said quietly. That made my chest tighten. Asleep. She's been sedated since late afternoon. A cold silence settled between us. Then Marjorie whispered something that made my stomach drop. Which means, Abigail, your brother took that box without her knowing. The hallway suddenly felt too small. My brother. My father's lockbox. A sedated mother. None of it fit together in a way that made sense. Where would Daniel take it? I asked quietly. Marjorie didn't answer right away. Instead, she studied my face as if trying to decide how much I was ready to hear. Abigail, before your father died, he asked me to do something. That caught my attention instantly. What kind of something? He asked me to watch your family. I blinked. My family. She nodded slowly. He told me if anything ever happened to him suddenly, I should pay attention to who started acting different. My throat tightened. And her eyes softened. He specifically mentioned your brother. The name landed harder this time. Daniel had always been the one people trusted first. The one teachers praised. The one business partners respected. But lately, I thought about the rushed funeral arrangements, the paperwork he wouldn't let me see, the quiet way he told me not to worry about legal details. My stomach twisted. What was inside the lockbox? I asked. Marjorie shook her head. I don't know. Then she said something that made my heart pound again. But your father told me one thing about it. What? Her voice lowered to a whisper. He said the truth about this family was written inside. The words, the truth about this family, stayed with me long after Marjorie finished speaking. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot, staring at the soft glow of the building where my mother slept and my brother had quietly taken something that didn't belong to him. For the first time since my father's funeral, I stopped accepting the version of events I'd been given. Daniel had arranged everything too quickly. The autopsy had been declined. The will had been read without much discussion. At the time, grief had made me passive. But grief can also sharpen into something else. Clarity. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Only one sentence appeared on the screen. Your father knew someone in this family was lying. Attached was a photograph. It showed the inside of the metal lockbox. Documents. Handwritten notes. And one envelope with my name written across the front. My hands trembled as I opened the image. Inside the envelope was a single sentence my father had written himself. Abigail, if you're reading this, start by asking Daniel what happened the night he visited your mother. And suddenly, for the first time since my father died, I understood why someone might have wanted him silent.